Our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps four, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good evening, it's Monday, the 27th of October. You're watching State of the Nation. I'm not Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm Christopher Hope, standing in for the big man. On tonight's show, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has said the government's grooming and gang inquiry is dead in the water, in his words, and he suggested a parliamentary inquiry. Is this alternative to a judge-led inquiry or an official inquiry any better? I'll be joined in the studio by Sir Julian Smith, the Conservative former Cabinet Minister who pushed through a bill compensating victims of institutional abuse in Northern Ireland, to discuss how the government can finally get an acceptable inquiry into this national scandal up and running. I sat down with Labour MP Maria Tidball, who has campaigned for a bill proposing action for children from abusive parents. She told me the tragic story of her constituents' children who were killed by their abusive father 11 years ago this week. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has blamed Brexit, yes, Brexit again, for slow house building in the capital, while industry leaders have pointed the finger back at him. As the housing crisis continues to grip cities, including London, is the answer to reform the building safety regulator, or something else altogether? And did you feel better yesterday after that extra hour's sleep? Well, I'll be finding out why we turn the clocks back and whether it's actually damaging the country. You might be surprised to learn it has something to do with Kaiser Wilhelm II. State of the Nation starts right now. So joined by my most intellectual of panel today, the former Tory MP and Minister Sir John Redwood and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound. As ever, let me know your views by going to gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for the news bulletins with Sam Francis.
Chris, thank you very much and good evening to you just after 8 o'clock. Well, the top story, David Lammy has said he is livid after a convicted sex offender was mistakenly released from HMP Chelmsford. Hadush Kabatu was jailed for assaulting a 14-year-old girl but freed by human error before being recaptured in North London. The Justice Secretary told MPs it was a mistake that should have never happened and promised Kabatu will be deported back to Ethiopia as quickly as possible. He did earlier order tougher release checks and an independent inquiry, but also hit back at the Tories, who he blames for 14 years of failure for the crisis in Britain's prisons.
It was the choices that his party made through 14 years of chaos. They said that they were the government of security and safety. They oversaw rising violent crime and crumbling courts and crumbling prisons. Violence went up in our prisons. Self-harm went up in our prisons. Drug abuse went up in our prisons. And prison officer numbers were cut under his watch. And he comes here and has the brass neck to give the impression that this started just 14 months ago.
Nigel Farage says the government's grooming gangs inquiry is dead in the water, calling it too slow, too broad and lacking real accountability. The Reform leader says Parliament should now step up and lead its own investigation, using what he called its extraordinary powers to uncover the truth. Well, earlier today, he was joined by survivor Ellie-Ann Reynolds, who's quit the government's panel. She says victims were silenced and said the process was gaslighty, degrading and manipulative.
Down to the fact that they don't want to vocalise the ethnicity of these men. We almost felt uncomfortable vocalising the ethnicity of these men, and like we shouldn't. Pretty much when we were in that inquiry, we were stripped from our voices, and we're not going to be stripped from our voices anymore. It wasn't morally correct for me to maintain myself on the panel because of how it was going. It was rigged from the start.
A ruthless Romanian gang that drugged, raped and trafficked women in Dundee has been jailed for a total of 68 years today. The 5 gang members, 4 men and 1 woman, were convicted for dozens of offences after a major police investigation uncovered a network exploiting vulnerable women in brothels across Tayside. The ringleader, described in court as a smirking and winking pimp, was sentenced to 20 years behind bars, with 4 more on supervision. And a scathing report has said the Home Office has squandered billions of pounds of taxpayers' money on asylum hotels. MPs on the Home Affairs Committee have branded the system chaotic, failed and expensive. Their warning Sir Keir Starmer's government risks losing public trust unless they have a clear plan to fix it. The Home Office insists it's furious about the number of migrants in hotels and says every single one will be closed. Well, earlier today, the Prime Minister responded to that criticism.
We had years under the previous government where they didn't process claims. So tens of thousands of people didn't have their claims processed. They were then housed in hotels. That was the policy of the last government. There were 400 at the height of it. It's now about 200. I'm determined that we will close those hotels. We're processing the claims much more quickly, and where people have got no right to be in our country, we're removing them at a higher rate than the best part of a decade. So we're taking the action, but I can't tell you how frustrated and angry I am that we've been left with a mess as big as this by the last government.
Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 9 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Westminster and Chris.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has declared the government's grooming gang inquiry dead in the water as he spoke at a press conference in central London today alongside brave survivor Ellie-Ann Reynolds. The government's inquiry was thrown into chaos last week after the departure of 5 victims, including Ellie-Ann, from the victims liaison panel advising the setting up of the inquiry. Then ex-police officer Jim Gamble and Annie Hudson, a former senior social worker, both withdrew as leading candidates to chair the probe. Insiders have now admitted it could take months to find the right candidate to run the inquiry.
Inquiry is dead in the water. Nearly 5 months have gone by, and what has happened? Nothing. They can't even agree who the chair is going to be. Starmer tells us that the Baroness Casey report forbids it from being a judge. If you read the report carefully, you'll realise that simply isn't true.
Mr Farrell said he wants a quicker, more transparent and more open solution in the form of a grooming gangs parliamentary commission held by MPs and peers. He says Parliament must act as a court, because it is technically a court, in order to re-establish trust in the institution.
It's time for Parliament to step up and to do its job. Select committees have the power to summon anybody. They could summon a former social worker. They could summon a former police officer. They could summon a former councillor. They could summon a former member of Parliament. It also has the power to require that people swear an oath. These are the extraordinary powers that Parliament has if it chooses to use it.
Joining me now in our studio here at GBNews Westminster is Conservative MP Sir Julian Smith, as well as my usual panel this week, the former Tory MP and Minister Sir John Redwood and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound. To you first then, Sir Julian, how did you feel seeing Nigel Farage next door to a very brave victim there of the grooming gangs?
Well, the victims of this absolutely horrific rape gang issue are going through, I think, the most traumatic time. They've gone through decades of trauma. What I saw in Northern Ireland is just how this trauma is never ending, and basically how we all have a huge responsibility to work with them carefully.
Well, we'll come to what you did in Northern Ireland in a second. The difficulty here is the victims, I don't think, really care who's helping them, as long as someone does. And when it gets party political, that's always a worry.
I think the politics has actually moved this inquiry forward. Remember, there was not a focus on a national inquiry to begin with, and that has developed through the politics. And now
the reporting GBNews, I would say.
And GBNews, and the great work that has been done campaigning on this. I think then there's obviously the focus on getting the chair in place, and I think the politics will push that along, and there's massive political pressure. But I agree, we do need to now be careful on ensuring that we build consent and build the foundations, not just for when the chair arrives, but for the months and years ahead.
And watching PMQs last Wednesday, when you had Conservative and Tory shouting at each other about who got this wrong, it goes back 3 decades, doesn't it?
I think we all have responsibility for opportunities missed and for things that should have been done. And I think we'll look back at this rape gang scandal and we will all reflect on what could have been done differently.
Where would you go from here? You probably wouldn't start from here with 5 victims quitting a panel advising the new inquiry. You formerly were on the Centre for Effective Dispute Resolution, the CEDR, a charity. How can you bring these two sides together? The sides, I mean, are the victims who trust nobody, and the politicians and people like Jess Phillips, who has a history in supporting abused women before she's an MP, but can't seem to connect or find the right language to convince victims to trust her.
Well, it's obviously vital this chair gets appointed and really quickly. So, I think whilst I disagree with Nigel Farage's plan, I do think he's putting political pressure on rightly to, like the Conservative Party and my leader, to get the chair appointed. But the big worry, Chris, is that what came out from Ellie, Fiona, Jessica and Elizabeth last week was really the loss of trust they had. They've had multiple examples of loss of trust with officialdom. And again, it came out last week, and I think there'll be other victims who are feeling like that. And in Northern Ireland, what was humbling about working with victims of institutional child abuse was building that trust.
How do you build that trust across the religious divide as well?
Well, I think it is really accepting, and I think the government will have to accept that it will lose control of this. It has to. This is good. The independent inquiry will have a life of its own. And the Home Office and ministers will not be, in charge of that. But I think the thing that is really vital now, as well as getting the chair in place, is actually getting some support from, people that are not in the official system to work out how is the inquiry going to communicate with victims. What are the structures going to be in place, once the chair is involved? What guidelines are going to be given to the chair about how victims are feeling? And that some of those routes may be official, but they might be quite informal routes. I think people want conversations. And I think really, I can't get across strongly enough how my experience in Northern Ireland about how the loss of trust over multiple iterations of discussions with ministers and politicians and civil servants was really profound.
And it must be judge-led, the inquiry.
Look, I think
because the PM says no so far.
The key thing is that the victims are happy. And I think the victims need to, the government needs to get the chair shortlist, and the victims need to be on board.
Stephen Pound, at the weekend, the PM wrote to victims. It was a typed letter. I think it should have been handwritten. I think it's only 5 people to write to.
Well, and he did a handwritten letter a couple of weeks ago, if you remember.
Well, but the weekend it wasn't. I mean, how can you empower? All the victims see is the government talking to them. Even if it's someone like Jess Phillips, who has a history of working with victims, she's getting no break on this.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Julian, he actually oversaw the Kincorra inquiry in Northern Ireland, which was intensely difficult because of the sectarian division. And he did that, but he actually engendered trust in the victims by devoting himself morning, noon. I was there at the time. He never, ever left Stormont at that particular time. But the thing, what he also did, and what we did in Northern Ireland, was if we couldn't actually get a consensus locally, we had to bring in somebody from outside, whether it's an Australian or a New Zealand judge, or in Julian's case, we brought in George Mitchell just before your time, to help with the arms decommissioning. Now, I think the other question I want to ask is, what exactly do we want from this inquiry? We all know that these rape gangs were predominantly people from South Asian, Pakistani. We know that. We know that the police covered up. We know the police didn't take it seriously. What more can we go? And don't forget, the J report sat for 6 years. It came up with 20 recommendations, the first one of which talked about the ethnicity of the abusers. Why haven't any...
It was very widely scoped, Jay, though, compared to what is wanted now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but there's 20 recommendations came from everyone. I thought every sane person would support those 20 recommendations. Why don't we at least go for that?
Only 2 have been implemented so far.
Is it 2 as many as that? Sorry.
I think it's 2. Yeah. So, John Rover, what would you do? It's a very difficult political situation for the government, and the victims are suffering.
Well, I agree, and the victims have to come first, and Julian's excellent work reminds us you can get people on side who suffered a lot. And I think Nigel's vision of an independent parliament meeting as a court is brilliant, but when you've got such a big inbuilt Labour majority, I don't think the victims would see it like that. And if it was done by select committees, they've all got huge Labour majorities.
So there'd be a Labour majority on it, wouldn't there?
And it'd be a Labour majority, so people would be very suspicious that it'd be either party political or the government would have their chosen people in positions of influence. So you press on with what they were trying to do, and you need an independent judge. I've always favoured Australia-New Zealand judge from a country that's very similar to our system, but isn't party to all the conflicts and the past history. And I think people could have confidence in them, and they would come here, you'd have to pay them well and put them up generously, and they would do a good job for us.
That could work. I mean, you two are former MPs, you are an MP, Julian Smith. My experience is the clerks are aware of the value of having the power to summon witnesses and also privilege, but they don't like testing that. Like a court would.
That's right.
That's the difference.
Yeah, and obviously there can be criminal charges brought if you don't engage with a statutory inquiry, and that's obviously much more difficult with a parliament-led inquiry.
But Australia does have some experience in this. There was a huge inquiry into child sex abuse, particularly amongst the Aboriginal, the first residents of Australia, and that has been led very successfully by Australian judges, so they do have some experience in it.
But I mean, we could recreate for a future problem a proper parliament meeting as a court, but I just don't think people are ready to do that, and I don't think they're ready to trust a government with such a big majority that unfortunately has dropped the ball on this very badly.
I wonder where it goes from here. I was just wondering who else could do this. I mean, the answer can't always be Louis' case. It couldn't. It's the government's problems.
Well, that's right. And I'd like to ask the government, what are they doing to find this chair? I mean, are they waiting for applications? Are they on the phones morning, noon, and night to get somebody in? This has to happen in the next few weeks. It has to. They have to get this chair on board. The other thing, Chris, is with Grenfell, David Neuberger, Lord Neuberger, and an amazing mediator called Bill Marsh, spent about a year working, and obviously we haven't got this time in this case, but working with victims.
And they brought them back, didn't they? There wasn't trust at the beginning, was there?
There was not trust there, and they worked out structures, they worked out design principles, and they defined with victims how did they want this to work? And we cannot do this inquiry, the government can't do this inquiry without some consent of other parties, and first and foremost consent and trust of victims.
Yes, it's got to be cross-party, and it really does beg a belief that it's taken this long. We've lost 2 candidates who the victims thought probably weren't suitable because they were connected with the very professions that are going to be part of the inquiry.
Simply associated with that, and how you find people who aren't...
They could have been expert witnesses. They were both in a position to be very expert witnesses, but have to be under a neutral chair.
Yeah.
And that chair needs to be relentless and angry.
And forensic.
Because we need an angry person going after every part of the state that covered this thing up.
And align themselves with the victims.
Absolutely.
And it's taking a big step. OK. Thank you, Julian Smith. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Now, responding to Mr Farage's press conference earlier, Labour Party chairwoman Anna Turley said this: the exploitation of children by grooming gangs is an appalling scandal, and this Labour government is determined to deliver justice for the survivors. As the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary promised the survivors, the scope of the inquiry will not change. It will examine the ethnicity and the religion of offenders, have full powers to compel witnesses and uncover the truth. While the Tories fail to act as this crisis is unfolding and reform shout from the sidelines, this Labour government is getting on with the job of delivering a national inquiry, putting survivors at the heart of the process and holding the institutions that fail them to account. Right, I sat down with Labour MP Marie Tidball, who's championed the government's repealing of an act in order to protect children from abusive parents. She told me the tragic story of her constituents' children who were killed by their abusive father. The full interview, the moving interview, is after the break. This is State of the Nation, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
They've completely refigured the inside of this theatre. So the stalls have been made into sort of tiered stadium seating. It's in the round. They've built seats and a balcony at the back as well.
In the Old Vic?
In the Old Vic. Absolutely. So this is a huge amount of effort's gone into this. Yep. Susan Sarandon, 79, Oscar winner. I have to say, superb, vivid.
Thelma and Louise.
Absolutely, and I love what she was doing here. And people aren't always. This is her UK stage debut.
Extraordinary.
Completely convincing, beautiful, nuanced. It's got Andrea Riseborough, incredible actress. Eleanor Worthington-Cox, who I love, who was in Next to Normal, but won an Olivier as a kid for Matilda. So this is Mary Page Marlowe. We've got 5 actresses playing the same woman through different times in her life, backwards and forwards through time. And we have got the playwright, Tracy Letts, giving us a little insight into what he was trying to do with the play.
What are the 11 scenes you would choose to illustrate your life, to tell you who you are?
I watched some clips of people in America talking about it when it first came out, curious to see if I was missing something. And they talked about it's a puzzle. How would you put your life in 11 scenes? And one of the people on the video mentioned it's a bit like a quilt, which always makes me groan a bit because there's a quilt at the start of the stage. This makes me groan.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, Susan Sarandon at the end, and she's great all the way through. Her final sort of big moving speech is she's taken a quilt into a dry cleaner and she starts talking about it, and it's different panels, like different bits of her life, and one panel that she loves most has a woman slightly turned away, bit mysterious. Who is she, Michael? What happened in her? And I just cringed, and I've seen a lot of 3-star reviews, which for me is just polite.
The People's Channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And we're back. Now, Marie Tidball is Labour MP for Penistone and Stocksbridge, who was first elected as an MP in July last year. And today she shared with GB News viewers and listeners how members of Parliament, even new ones, can make a big difference to their constituents. For those who aren't familiar with their story, Claire Throsrell is one of Marie's constituents. Claire's two sons, Jack and Paul, aged 12 and 9 respectively, were tragically killed by their abusive father when he set their house on fire 11 years ago this week. Let's have a look now at my interview with Marie earlier today.
So, Marie, when did you first hear about Claire's story?
So I grew up in the same hometown, Penistone, as the boys and Claire, and I knew of the tragic deaths of her two sons. But the first time I met Claire was at a remembrance event at my old secondary school, where Jack, her eldest son, went and is remembered by the head teacher every year. And I met Claire there, and she told me the story of how her two sons were lured into the attic in the family home by her ex-husband with the promise of a train set. He then set 14 fires alight around that home, and her two sons tragically died as a result of that house fire. And she made a promise to those boys, as she said goodbye to her eldest son, that she would make sure that their voices were finally heard by the family court system by repealing the law on the presumption of contact. When she told me that story and we met, I said to her, if I'm elected as your Member of Parliament, I promise to do all I can to make sure that we change the law on the presumption of contact to protect the lives of generations of children up and down this country.
So you're changing the law here on the presumption of contact so that people who abuse or are a threat to children, they have no guaranteed right to see their children. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the presumption at the moment requires the victim of the domestic abuse to prove that there had been that abuse in place. Repealing it and changing the law of the Children's Act 2014, which in turn changed the 1989 Children's Act, makes sure that it reverses that. So it would be up to the parent, where there was potential domestic abuse, to prove that it was in the interest of the child and that they were able to provide a safe environment for that child. This is enormously important. Women's Aid have campaigned on this for 30 years. We know in that 30-year period, 67 children have died at the hands of their known domestically abusive parent on a permitted court visit where the courts have been aware that domestic abuse has been in place. But it's not just about the risk of homicide. We know from 2024, from the 9 months from last April, 40,000 cases in under CAFCAS in the family courts involved domestic abuse. So it will have a much, much broader effect and protect those that are victims of sexual abuse, physical harm and violence as well.
Last week you went to see the Prime Minister with Claire. What did he say to you?
He said how humbled he was with the fierce campaign that Claire has fought over 11 years. We've seen 5 previous Prime Ministers who have done nothing. I took Claire, my fantastic constituent, to Downing Street last week, and I told him of the promise that she'd made to her boys, that she would make sure their voices were heard by repealing this law, and that in turn, as her constituency MP, I'd promised her that I would help her do that. And he told her in Downing Street that he would deliver on that promise and make sure we do repeal the law on the presumption of contact. So it's the first Prime Minister in the time that she's been fighting this campaign absolutely tirelessly to do that promise and say that this will be delivered under our government.
It's amazing it's taken so long, so many years to get to this point and to rebalance the debate in favour of victims.
It is absolutely essential. In the days since that we've announced that this is going to happen, I've had many hundreds of messages, both on email but also on social media, saying what a difference this would have made to protecting the lives of children, of women that have been going through domestic abuse for so long, and what it will do to support and save the lives of a generation of children. This puts the best interest and the well-being of children at the heart of our family justice system, but it also helps protect the victim, the parent victim of domestic abuse, because it means now they don't have to go to court to prove that the other parent is a domestic abuser before their child is stopped from going and having permitted court contact visits. It reversed that, and it puts the emphasis on the voice of children and putting their interests at the heart of our family justice system.
And when will this change happen, Marie?
It will happen as soon as parliamentary time allows, and for your viewers, what that means is that this has to be an amendment in law to a bill in Parliament, because it is repealing two other acts of Parliament, two elements of other acts of Parliament, and it has to be in the face of a statute that's coming before the House of Commons, that it's in scope of, that it is the subject matter of the same bill and can therefore have a legal effect in the way that we need.
So next year, you think?
I hope it will be as soon as possible, and I think there's no chance, knowing the other ministers that I've been working with on this, working with Claire as closely as I have been, and the fierce and powerful response from the Prime Minister himself, who announced this at the beginning of Prime Minister's Question Time last week, that we will do this, our government will deliver this.
But Marie Tibble, you were elected last year as the MP for Penistone and Stocksbridge. How does it feel to get change in law so soon in your time as an MP?
I mean, it feels a great privilege to have been able to work alongside Claire Throssell and to take her campaign to the next step where it can become law. And that's what members of Parliament are here to do. We are here to represent our constituents as the elected representatives and make sure they have a powerful and strong voice in Parliament to change the law to better meet the needs of people up and down this country. And it is an absolute privilege to serve her and to serve my constituency of Penistone and Stocksbridge.
Marie Tibble, thank you for joining us today on GB News and tonight, of course, on State of the Nation.
OK, joining me now is my panel, the former Tory MP and Minister Sir John Redwood and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound. To you first, Stephen Pound, why does it take so long for the system clearly to recognise the issue of people who are vulnerable to abusive fathers?
I can tell you exactly why. And before I do, I think fair play to you and to Marie Tibble for an extraordinary piece of work here. Well, and don't forget, sunlight's the best disinfectant. Sometimes you have to bring these things up. The thing is, people are very squeamish about the reality of this situation, which could involve taking a child away from both parents. Now, John, you and I, one of the things we hate as being MPs was dealing with family disputes, when the children are used as a weapon against the other. And I used to do a lot of stuff with the Catholic Children's Society with contact centres, where you actually bring together the families under supervision. The reality was, in some cases, you would not want that child to stay with either parent. Nor often than not, the presumption was that one parent would, just simply by definition of who they were, would have a presumption that they would...
So the law didn't want to make a choice in that?
No, the law was squeamish, and the family courts have got an incredibly difficult job. But it is a very, very sensitive issue.
John?
Well, I mean, I welcome any change in the law which can protect children's lives. And, of course, everything should be based on the safety of the child. But these cases are very complicated, and the law can only get so far. You still need a judge, and you need good evidence and truthful testimony in order to protect the child from the minority of parents that are harming, but to allow otherwise children to have proper contact with their parents, which is the better outcome for them. Because if you make the child a child of the state, the outcomes are worse than for children who have loving parents. And most of us are loving fathers or loving mothers, and we want to make sure that our children are not harmed. But there are these very difficult cases which the courts have got to find individually and say, no, this man is violent, we must get him out of it altogether.
But the presumption is going back in favour of the children, the victims.
But we all agree with that.
Yes,
it must be right to say the only thing that really matters is the safety of the child. But I'm just stressing that these are difficult cases and they won't always get them right.
OK. Look, John Redwood and Stephen Pound, thank you. And to Marie Tibble earlier, thank you for joining us, Marie. And to you. Work on that campaigning issue there. Now, London Mayor Sadiq Khan has blamed slow house building in London on, yes, Brexit. Is he right? I'm sure John Redwood won't agree. Our next guest thinks it's regulators that are holding Britain back. This is, of course, State of the Nation, not with Jacob Rees-Mogg, but with me, Christopher Hope, only on GB News.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, here's your latest holiday sun forecast brought to you by the Met Office. Western parts of the Med are set to see some thundery showers over the next few days, but mostly fine further east. So on Tuesday, the Canaries look fine, but across Madeira and certainly parts of Portugal, some heavy outbreaks of rain developing at times. The central part of the Med not looking too bad, isolated showers, some fairly warm sunshine. Some warm sunshine in the east too, but also some thundery showers. And over the next few days, we hold on to thundery showers in the west, mostly fine though the further east you go.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixed bag of weather for the next 24 hours, damp for many overnight, rain clearing to showers then, interspersed by sunny spells but with a gusty wind. We're seeing very Atlantic-driven weather at the moment with low after low after low moving in, and the next low is already upon us. That's sending a band of rain as well as some mountain snow for Scotland across the UK overnight. It's soon replaced by showers with some breaks in the cloud, particularly through central parts, but with a gusty wind it's not going to be a particularly cold night. Temperatures generally dipping to the mid to high single figures or low double figures, a little bit chillier for northern Scotland. And here, some of the showers first thing again will be falling as snow over the mountains, but at lower levels it's just heavy showers, even some more prolonged spells of rain through central parts of Scotland. Some sunshine in the far north, also the far south of Scotland. Northern Ireland seeing a mix of sunny spells and showers, likewise for much of northwest England, southwest England and Wales. For the Midlands, East Anglia and for parts of the southeast, it's mostly dry first thing with some decent sunny spells. But for all of the UK, we've got this gusty westerly breeze. That's going to be particularly strong over the Pennines and just to the east of the Pennines through the morning especially. And that's going to continue to bring showers in from the west. Some prolonged rain pushing into Cornwall, parts of Devon by the afternoon, and those heavy showers across western Scotland just coming in thick and fast. Away from that, we do have some sunshine, but on Wednesday, the more prolonged rain in the southwest spreads more widely to much of the southern two-thirds of the UK, particularly Wales, the southwest of England, and later on the Midlands. To the north, northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, another day of bright spells, but also some heavy showers and some mountain snow for Scotland. Staying mixed Thursday and Friday with the chance of some stronger winds at times.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, so Sadiq Khan has been handed an emergency £300 million government lifeline to salvage his housing plans for the capital. He blamed slow house building rates on Brexit. Yep, that old chestnut
It's
again,
all your fault.
Arguing it caused a huge loss of EU construction workers and the cost of building materials to rise. However, industry leaders have pointed fingers at his affordable housing requirements, say they have made schemes completely unaffordable. This problem is mirrored in cities across Britain. One regulator governing building safety has a reported 10,000 homes awaiting approval. So how should the government tackle this crisis and, frankly, get Britain building again? With me now is Maxwell Marlowe. He's a director of the cross-party YIMBY initiative, as well as my panel, the former Tory MP Sir John Redwood and a former Labour MP Stephen Pound. To you first then, Maxwell Marlowe. Why can't we build quick enough? Here are some figures here. In May this year, just 19 newly built private homes were sold in all of London.
Yes.
Okay? That's one stat. It's worse than April, where there were 23 new homes built in all of London and sold. That is unbelievable and appalling.
It is a viability issue which you can't begin to believe.
But there are car parks, land around stations that you could build homes on.
Absolutely. I mean, so if you look at some analysis from Mollior, which is a real estate company, they say that over 50% of London, even if you gave their land away for free, removed all the regulations, and you gave away the S106 and SIL requirements.
What does that mean in English?
In English, that means any taxes paid on top of any development would still be unviable to build on. Over 50% of London. So we are in real crisis territory here. But I wrote a report recently on the building safety regulator, which basically, after the Grenfell tragedy, which was an absolutely terrible thing to happen, I looked at how this regulator acts, brought into the Tories, now going now.
What is it? It's a quango?
It's a quango, which says over 8 stories, any building that is submitted to the regulator to be built, which is over, a certain height requirement and contains housing.
So it's flats?
Flats, basically,
right.
Yeah. Needs to have every single bit of work included in the planning, development, architecture and financing. Needs to be submitted to the regulator to be checked by hand by bureaucrats in order to pass through. Now, let me give you an idea about this. Of 2,000 applications, less than 100 have been put through the entire regulator, which means the entire industry has grown to a halt. I spoke to a constructor recently which has had to lay off half of its staff because it has slowed down so much. We are in serious crisis territory in London because if this doesn't pick up, we'll be left with a housing crisis for the next 5-10 years even to get these big projects off the ground.
Now, the government gets this. They've got a new fast-track process to review quickly new build applications. I think there's a new boss at the top of the building regulator, or at least the last one has gone. There's an inquiry launched by the House of Lords. It seems the government, in all its various parts, gets the problem with the building safety regulator. Now, you can understand why they're cautious, because we're looking towards the Grenfell report. Is it out yet? It's coming...
Well, it came out a couple of years ago.
It came out, and that has shown issues there with safety of cladding, so no one wants to rush into... But equally, there's a problem here with not enough homes being built. There were rumoured to be 10,000 applications stuck with the regulator.
Oh, way more than that.
Is it more than that?
We're talking 23,000 homes being stuck with the regulator at the moment. And having looked at some of the cases that come out of the regulator, you say, I mean, the cladding's OK, but we don't like the cork being applied around some of the kitchen sinks in your building, or we don't like the fact that you don't have enough hearing aid applications for your reception area. This is the sort of stuff which is being held up by the regulator currently, and it is killing house building in the UK. In fact, latest data shows that nobody has applied to go through the building safety regulator since June.
No one's applied to go through it?
No, not yet, no.
So they're waiting for the backlog to clear?
Fundamentally, and bear in mind, if you look at the way in which London building happens and how development occurs in the capital, this stuff takes years to get through the pipeline before you even put a spade in the ground. And now we have a situation where no one is applying at the moment because they don't trust the regulator. There's a big debate in the House of Commons on Thursday last week, led by Chris Curtis and Mike Reeder from the Labour Party, who were screaming about these issues.
They're concerned too. So it really is a cross-party issue.
Totally.
Here.
I mean, so the paper I released had 4 words from Richard Tice, from Gareth Bacon from the Conservatives, Vicky Slade from the Liberal Democrats, and from Mike Reeder from the Labour Party.
There's a political issue here for the Mayor of London.
Absolutely.
He's got to build his new homes. He's planned to.
But he can't do that. That's the issue. So we welcome some of the new announcements from from Steve Reed out of MHLG, which are going to bring down the S106 requirements, the Section 106, which mandates that builders need to provide, until previously, 50% of their homes have to be affordable, which is completely unviable for schemes. Bring that down to less than 20%. That's very welcome. But this regulator will not move, and it can't move until
Who
the central
funds the
government...
YIMBY initiative? Is it builders?
Well, no. We're a private organisation.
Developers who want to have it easier for them?
Absolutely, of course. But they want to build new houses.
They may want to bring down the affordable ratio.
But this makes sense, fundamentally, because they're not building the new homes, right? I mean, if we look at the way in which the building safety regulator is supposed to operate, is to bring safer homes on. If they're not building homes at the first place, then we're trapping loads of people, loads of vulnerable people, into unsafe accommodation and trapping them in, in areas where they can't move out and grow a life and a family and have good lives for themselves.
So, John Redwood, Maxwell Marlowe here is blaming regulation. Is it the regulation or the market that's failing people? I mean, I say it again, 23 new home sales in April in London, fewer than that, 19 in May. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's quite true that the regulator is gumming up the works, and there needs to be a very dramatic change on that.
What would you do with the regulator?
But also, it's the economics. It is too dear to build in London, and you can't build at a profit. And the idea that you have to have 35% social housing in each development is all very well, but if it's 35% of nothing, that's self-defeating, whereas 20% of something would be worth having. So you need to change all of the things we've been talking about. The tax is too high, the social requirement is too high, the overall costs are too high, and the regulator, I'm sure, is doing a lot of damage.
Steve Pound, you're a former MP for the west of London. What do you take on this?
A former chair of the Planning Committee, I know a great deal of it. I think Section 106, which is the Local Government Planning Act, which when you had to provide something like highway improvements if you build it's now community infrastructure levy. I don't think that's the issue. And interestingly enough, we have hundreds and hundreds of new homes in Ealing, but they are houses in multiple occupation, which don't need planning permission. It's what's called deemed consent. And that is the reality. However, we have an even bigger problem, and I hate to sort of load Pelion on Ossa here, but we've got developments in West London that cannot start because the national grid cannot provide the electricity for them. So the thing about building new housing, land, labour and capital are the three factors. One of those we don't have. The other one we would like, but we'd quite like to have. But finally, the actual land in London, although there's loads of it around the outside, we simply don't have the ability to cut through the thicket of obfuscation and get building.
Maxwell Marlowe, 30 seconds on this.
I mean, it's very interesting to hear a former Labour MP rail against the Town and Country Planning Act, which has destroyed so much value.
A former chair of planning.
Okay. Well, I should say so.
What would you do? Come on.
I mean, so for me, with my other hat on, if I switch my hats over...
Which is Adam Smith Institute.
Yeah, back to Adam Smith Institute, we had a very interesting paper out which said that, if you could build on the green belts around London and pull the uplift land value out, which is 350 times, and distribute it to local people, enrich them through equity and cash, you could build so much.
And de-industrialise central London too.
Well, indeed.
We shouldn't be driving lorries in and out of central London.
Land,
no, not green belt. Green belt
that's even worse, green belt. That's protected greenfield land. I mean, if you build on green belt, that's a complete...
But Chris, have you seen some of what is available on green belt land? There's enormous amounts. We're not talking about the areas of outstanding natural beauty.
Industrial land without
former
touching the green belt. I live in the centre of London. There are perfectly good sites near me, and I would write in and say, yes, build there. That's where we want you to build.
Maxwell Marlowe from the GBNews.
Build, baby, build.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you both, of course, Stephen Pound and Sir John Redwood. After the break, I'm finding out why we turned the clocks back yesterday and whether it's actually damaging the country. You may be surprised to hear it's got something to do with Kaiser Wilhelm II. I bet Jackie Rees-Mogg knew that. I didn't. This is State of the Nation with me, Christopher Hope, only on GBNews.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now, when you woke up yesterday morning, did you feel happier and healthier? Well, that could be because the clocks went back an hour on Sunday morning. This has become a biannual habit that nobody really questions. We accept it, don't we? But why do we do it? You might be surprised to learn it's got something to do with Kaiser Wilhelm II. Is it time to ditch daylight savings? Joining me now is the friend of GB News and the Mail on Sunday columnist, Peter Hitchens. Peter, welcome to State of the Nation. First of all, what is the link between the German Kaiser and putting these clocks back and going forward in the autumn, in the spring?
Very simply, it was a wartime panic. The Germans, in the middle of the First World War in 1916, were afraid they were losing. They had been sold this idea that if they forced everybody to get up an hour earlier, which is what happens when the clocks are put forward, they would somehow or other save energy in their economy and have a more efficient war. A few weeks later, the British Parliament copied this panic measure, and neither of them gained anything particular from it. In fact, many years later, it was admitted by Shuter Reid, the British Home Secretary, in the Second World War that this measure didn't actually change anything or save any appreciable amounts of fuel. But it was one of those things which in wartime, if you say this will help win the war, people will accept, and that's what happened. And then it became inertia, and people were less and less willing to go back on it. It was more of a struggle in Canada where people did resist it, but in the end they were forced to give in because the United States adopted it.
I thought it was something to do with milking cows in the daylight or something, in the morning. Nothing?
Nothing to do with that at all. I mean, there are all kinds of objections to it, and farmers are among those who do have objections to it because it messes all kinds of people around, particularly those who live by the seasons and whose days are governed by natural light. But for the rest of us, it's just an incomprehensible nuisance. What I can tell you is that if any government announced on any given day, tomorrow all of you will be compulsorily instructed to go to work an hour earlier, people would say, what? And resist. Yes. But when they're told it's daylight saving time, they do what they're told. Most people don't even know whether the clocks go forwards or backwards in October or March. They have no idea what's going on. But because it happens, people accept it. The thing is, that in the past few years, that's changed because an awful lot of countries have grown tired of it and the justifications for it have grown very thin. The danger is now that we will decide to stick on other people's time zones. So there are a lot of people who for some bizarre reason, would like Britain to be on Berlin time, and indeed Berlin to be on Minsk time, and so on. They like it for some reason.
I'm looking at the clock now. It's 10 to 9 in UK at the moment. Well, what time would you like it to be all year round? This time, or would you like it to be?
Time. This is natural time. Time actually tells you what is going on in the universe. Noon every day is an actual event in which the rotating Earth is in a relationship with the sun around which we orbit.
You get somebody drop you.
You're not making it up. It's not. And if you falsify it, it's like falsifying a thermometer or a speedometer or a butcher putting his thumb on the scale. You're saying this measure is overruled by government fiat, which is a ridiculous thing to do. But it is an actual event, and it's natural for us. And when the clocks go forward in March, in every jurisdiction where it happens, there are quite a lot of heart attacks and other problems for people who don't like it. It's like a very sudden government-imposed jet lag.
That can't be right. Is there evidence to say there's more heart attacks when clocks go forward in the spring?
Well, look it up if you don't believe me. It's bad for people, as jet lag is bad for people, suddenly being forced to live their lives an hour ahead of their natural time. Here's my simple point. The default position of the clock should be the natural time zone of the area in which you live. It's crazy to have your clocks set at the time of somewhere else. If you live in Berlin, then Berlin time's great. But if you don't live in Berlin, then don't have it.
Yes. Can I just check? Do you adjust your clocks, or are you always working in GMT? I mean, do you ever change your clocks, or do you refuse to on principle?
No, of course I change my clocks because I go to work every day by train, and I listen to broadcast programmes on the radio and watch it on television. If you don't change your clocks, which when it's in operation is the legal time, then you fall out of step with the busy world. It would be silly. You'd have to be completely cut off from daily life to do it. Okay. But I would much rather not have to do it.
Peter, thank you for your time. And quickly to the panel, Stephen Pound.
Yeah, I spent many years working night shifts, and I used to hate it when you're working 2 o'clock in the morning, suddenly it's 3 o'clock. But Miss Harris brought a bill to the House of Commons years ago, and we were inundated with complaints of Scottish farmers and saying that, we will suffer massively because...
So what time do you want? Do you want the British summer time or the winter time? What do you want it to be?
No, I like it to be summer all the year round.
Yes, how about you, Sir John Redwood?
No, Greenwich Mean Time, and I agree with Peter. I think it's complete nonsense that we carry on doing this. It's disruptive, it's silly. We should be talking about how we grow the economy and get people's incomes up and make some sensible...
But what about your circadian rhythm?
rather than arguing about this ridiculous farce where we all had to change our clocks.
Listen, it was great to have you here. Thank you, Stephen Pound, Sir John Redwood. Great to have you here. It is now 8:53 and 44 seconds.
Berlin time.
Berlin time. Over now to my pal, Patrick Christis.
Yes, thank you very much, Christopher. Great stuff. I've got a really big show to kickstart the week, actually. Masked Muslim gangs turned parts of Britain into a no-go zone over the weekend. Turns out we're wasting billions of pounds on migrant hotels. Calls for Lamy to resign over the Ethiopian sex offenders' release. And people who cry about race all the time, they see it everywhere. They're now calling Sarah Pochin a racist for daring to notice other people's races. And the King has been heckled. All of that and much more.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixed bag of weather for the next 24 hours. Damp for many overnight, rain clearing to showers then, interspersed by sunny spells but with a gusty wind. We're seeing very Atlantic-driven weather at the moment, with low after low after low moving in, and the next low is already upon us. That's sending a band of rain, as well as some mountain snow for Scotland across the UK overnight. It's soon replaced by showers with some breaks in the cloud, particularly through central parts. But with a gusty wind, it's not going to be a particularly cold night. Temperatures generally dipping to the mid to high single figures or low double figures, a little bit chillier for northern Scotland. And here, some of the showers first thing again will be falling as snow over the mountains, but at lower levels it's just heavy showers, even some more prolonged spells of rain through central parts of Scotland. Some sunshine in the far north, also the far south of Scotland. Northern Ireland seeing a mix of sunny spells and showers, likewise for much of northwest England, southwest England and Wales. For the Midlands, East Anglia and for parts of the southeast, it's mostly dry first thing with some decent sunny spells. But for all of the UK UK, we've got this gusty westerly breeze. That's going to be particularly strong over the Pennines and just to the east of the Pennines through the morning especially. And that's going to continue to bring showers in from the west, some prolonged rain pushing into Cornwall, parts of Devon by the afternoon, and those heavy showers across western Scotland just coming in thick and fast. Away from that, we do have some sunshine, but on Wednesday the